My name is James, and for as long as I can remember, I felt like an outsider in my own home. Growing up, family dinners were silent battles where my thoughts were ignored, my jokes fell flat, and my dreams were mocked. My parents, especially my mom, valued only what was practical. To her, life had one formula: work hard, earn money, and avoid anything that didn't lead to a stable career. My dad seemed laid back at first glance, but beneath his calm exterior lay the same rigid mindset. As for me, I was the black sheep, the dreamer who never fit their mold. One memory still haunts me: my elementary school graduation. While other kids proudly held certificates under applause, I stood there, dreading what came next. When it was time for parents to speak, my mom took the mic and said bluntly, "I'll never understand why James insists on chasing these useless fantasies. If he doesn't wake up soon, we might as well start looking for his real parents." The room erupted in laughter, but all I could feel was shame burning inside me. That moment defined my childhood, a constant reminder that I wasn't enough. Even worse were the quiet nights when no one asked about my day or cared about my aspirations. Once, I excitedly shared a painting I'd worked on for weeks, hoping for even a shred of approval. Instead, my dad glanced at it briefly before muttering, "This won't pay the bills," while my mom dismissed it entirely. These moments carved deep scars into my soul, shaping the man I am today, a man desperate to escape the shadow of their expectations. From the moment I chose my field of study, the divide between me and my family widened into an unbridgeable chasm. My parents, especially mom, dismissed it as useless, even though it had immense value for society. Once, desperate to prove them wrong, I presented a personal project with real-world potential, an idea that could help small businesses thrive. I was proud of it, excited even, but all mom did was shake her head and say, "You're just drawing castles in the air. James, when will you wake up?" Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, leaving me hollow and defeated. Then there was Mark, perfect, golden Mark, the living embodiment of everything my parents valued. He wasn't just their son, he was their hero. Every move he made was celebrated, every minor achievement amplified tenfold. At Dad's birthday dinner last year, they gifted him an expensive watch, praising how responsible and successful he was. Meanwhile, when I proudly announced I'd been promoted at work, a milestone I'd worked years to achieve, all I got was a dismissive glance and the comment, "Well, let's hope this year you actually do something worthwhile." The contrast stung more than I cared to admit. It wasn't just big moments either. Even the smallest things highlighted our differences. One time, Mark casually mentioned he'd helped a neighbor fix their Wi-Fi, a task so trivial it took less than 5 minutes, and suddenly everyone was gushing about how reliable and helpful he was. That same week, I completed a major project at work, one that earned me recognition from my boss and colleagues. Did my family notice? Of course not. Instead, during dinner, Mom remarked, "At least Mark is doing something useful around the neighborhood." Each word felt like another brick added to the wall separating us. The worst part wasn't the comparisons themselves, it was the way they erased my efforts entirely. No matter what I accomplished, it was never enough. They saw Mark as capable, dependable, flawless, while I was perpetually the disappointment. Standing next to him always felt suffocating, like no matter how hard I tried, I'd never measure up. Their constant belittlement carved deep scars into my confidence, making me question whether I truly deserved success or if I was just chasing some impossible dream. Family gatherings were always a minefield for me, but one particular dinner stands out as the epitome of how my family operated. I had just received an important award in my field, a recognition that required months of relentless effort and creativity. It wasn't just any accolade, it was validation from peers who understood the value of what I did. Excited, I brought it up during dinner, hoping for even a shred of acknowledgement. "I won this award last week," I said, trying to sound casual but unable to hide my pride. The room fell silent for half a second before my mom cut in without missing a beat. "Oh, that's nice," she muttered dismissively, her tone dripping with indifference. Then, as if on cue, she turned to Mark. "By the way, did you tell everyone about your promotion yet? It's such a big deal." Just like that, the spotlight shifted entirely to him. Everyone leaned in eagerly, congratulating Mark as though his promotion was some monumental achievement, never mind that he worked in corporate sales, where promotions were practically guaranteed after a certain number of years. Meanwhile, my accomplishment was swept under the rug like crumbs from the table. But the worst part, my younger cousin Sarah chimed in with a smirk, saying, "You know, James is really good at talking about things." Maybe next time, he can give us a TED Talk or something. Laughter erupted around the table, and I felt my face burn with embarrassment. Was this really all they thought of me? That I was nothing more than a dreamer spinning empty words? It wasn't just these moments that made me feel powerless, it was the constant pressure they exerted over every aspect of my life. One incident still haunts me. I had secured a crucial job interview, a chance to take my career to the next level. I had prepared for weeks, rehearsing answers and researching the company obsessively. On the morning of the interview, my phone rang. It was Mom. Her voice trembled with urgency. "James, we need you to cover the electricity bill right now. They're threatening to shut it off." Panic surged through me. How could I focus on an interview when my family might lose power? Without hesitation, I postponed the call with the hiring manager, scrambling to transfer the money. Only later did I find out the truth. There was no emergency. The bill wasn't due for another 2 weeks. It was just another tactic away to keep me tethered to them financially. When I confronted her, she shrugged it off. "Well, you always have time for nonsense like interviews anyway. Besides, isn't helping your family more important?" And then there was Mark, ever the master manipulator. He never directly insulted me, at least not in front of outsiders, but his subtle digs stung worse than outright mockery. During that same dinner, after everyone finished fawning over his promotion, he casually remarked, "It must be nice to have so much free time to chase awards, huh? James, I barely have enough hours in the day for real work." Real work. As if what I did wasn't legitimate. His comment hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, while my parents nodded along as if agreeing with him. Each interaction chipped away at my self-worth. No matter how hard I tried to prove myself, to show them that I wasn't wasting my life, they refused to see me as anything other than a disappointment. I felt trapped in a cycle of proving, failing, and being dismissed. Their control wasn't just financial, it was emotional, psychological. Every snide remark, every glance of disapproval, reinforced the idea that I would never measure up, not to Mark, not to their impossible standards. Family gatherings were always a minefield for me, but one particular dinner stands out as the epitome of how my family operated. I had just received an important award in my field, a recognition that required months of relentless effort and creativity. It wasn't just any accolade, it was validation from peers who understood the value of what I did. Excited, I brought it up during dinner, hoping for even a shred of acknowledgement. "I won this award last week," I said, trying to sound casual but unable to hide my pride. The room fell silent for half a second before my mom cut in without missing a beat. "Oh, that's nice," she muttered dismissively, her tone dripping with indifference. Then, as if on cue, she turned to Mark. "By the way, did you tell everyone about your promotion yet? It's such a big deal." Just like that, the spotlight shifted entirely to him. Everyone leaned in eagerly, congratulating Mark as though his promotion was some monumental achievement, never mind that he worked in corporate sales, where promotions were practically guaranteed after a certain number of years. Meanwhile, my accomplishment was swept under the rug like crumbs from the table. But the worst part, my younger cousin Sarah chimed in with a smirk, saying, "You know, James is really good at talking about things. Maybe next time, he can give us a TED Talk or something." Laughter erupted around the table, and I felt my face burn with embarrassment. Was this really all they thought of me? That I was nothing more than a dreamer spinning empty words? It wasn't just these moments that made me feel powerless, it was the constant pressure they exerted over every aspect of my life. One incident still haunts me. I had secured a crucial job interview, a chance to take my career to the next level. I had prepared for weeks, rehearsing answers and researching the company obsessively. On the morning of the interview, my phone rang. It was Mom. Her voice trembled with urgency. "James, we need you to cover the electricity bill right now. They're threatening to shut it off." Panic surged through me. How could I focus on an interview when my family might lose power? Without hesitation, I postponed the call with the hiring manager, scrambling to transfer the money. Only later did I find out the truth. There was no emergency. The bill wasn't due for another 2 weeks. It was just another tactic away to keep me tethered to them financially. When I confronted her, she shrugged it off. "Well, you always have time for nonsense like interviews anyway. Besides, isn't helping your family more important?" And then there was Mark, ever the master manipulator. He never directly insulted me, at least not in front of outsiders, but his subtle digs stung worse than outright mockery. During that same dinner, after everyone finished fawning over his promotion, he casually remarked, "It must be nice to have so much free time to chase awards, huh? James, I barely have enough hours in the day for real work." Real work. As if what I did wasn't legitimate. His comment hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, while my parents nodded along as if agreeing with him. Each interaction chipped away at my self-worth. No matter how hard I tried to prove myself to show them that I wasn't wasting my life, they refused to see me as anything other than a disappointment. I felt trapped in a cycle of proving, failing, and being dismissed. Their control wasn't just financial, it was emotional, psychological. Every snide remark, every glance of disapproval, reinforced the idea that I would never measure up, not to their impossible standards. It was a Saturday morning when I stumbled upon the video moment that would forever change everything. I was scrolling through my phone, half distracted, when a notification popped up. Someone had tagged me in a post. Confused, I clicked on it, and there it was, the live stream of our family dinner from the previous weekend. At first, I thought it might just be some harmless footage, maybe a funny story or two shared over food. But within seconds, my stomach dropped as I heard my mom's voice loud and clear, laughing at how completely useless my degree was. I froze, my thumb hovering above the screen, but I couldn't stop watching. The video played on, and soon my dad chimed in, saying he still couldn't believe I was making a living off something so childish. "It's like playing with puzzle pieces for kids," he sneered, his tone dripping with disdain. And then came Mark, leaning back in his chair, smirking as he muttered, "Yeah, well, at least he helps out financially. If he were smart, he'd realize pretending doesn't pay the bills." Pretending. As if all the years I'd spent building my career, working late nights, facing rejection after rejection, pouring every ounce of energy into creating something meaningful, meant nothing. But the comments under the video hit harder than anything else. One uncle wrote, "If this were my kid, I'd make him drop it immediately." Another cousin joked, "James is lucky you guys are letting him live rent-free while he plays pretend." Each word felt like another stab to my already fragile pride. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the endless stream of mockery, each comment amplifying the humiliation. These weren't strangers laughing at me. These were people who claimed to care about me. What made it worse was realizing that none of them, not one person, had stood up for me during that dinner. They sat there, eating their meals, nodding along as my life's work was reduced to a punchline. I rewound parts of the video, hoping against hope that someone, anyone, had said something to defend me. But no. All I found was more laughter, more ridicule, more cruelty disguised as family banter. As I stared at the screen, memories flooded back. Every time I'd swallowed my pride to help them, every dollar I'd transferred knowing it meant skipping meals myself, every achievement I'd quietly celebrated only to have it dismissed with a sigh. Their words echoed in my ears now, louder than ever before. "He'll come crawling back eventually," my dad had said once, months ago, when I told them about landing a major client. Back then, I brushed it off, telling myself they didn't understand. But now I saw it for what it truly was: contempt. The betrayal cut deeper than any insult. For years, I had convinced myself that staying connected mattered, that despite their disapproval, I owed them loyalty because they were my blood. I had sacrificed so much for them, bending over backward to prove I wasn't the failure they believed me to be. And this was their repayment. A public spectacle where they tore me apart for entertainment. My breath came in short, uneven bursts as anger boiled inside me. I wanted to scream, to throw my phone across the room, to confront them right then and there. But instead, I sat there, paralyzed, replaying the video again and again. With each viewing, the reality sank in further. I had been fooling myself. This wasn't love. It wasn't even respect. It was manipulation, pure and simple. By the time I finally locked my phone and placed it on the table, my hands were shaking. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling, trying to process what I had just seen. How could they do this? How could they sit there, laughing at me, mocking me behind my back while taking advantage of everything I gave them? Every payment, every sacrifice, it all flashed before my eyes. Thousands of dollars over the years, gone without a single word of gratitude. And now, this. A wave of clarity washed over me. I realized I had two choices: continue living in denial, pretending that things would somehow improve, or take control of my life and walk away. For the first time, I chose myself. The first call was to my mom. I knew it would be the hardest. She always played the victim card so well, but I couldn't delay the inevitable. Her voice cracked almost immediately, laced with manufactured tears. "How could you do this, James? You're killing me. Do you know what it feels like to have your own child turn their back on you?" Each word dripped with manipulation, but I wasn't falling for it this time. "Mom," I said firmly, cutting through her theatrics, You've never once valued anything I've done. Every success I've had, you dismissed. Every effort I made, you mocked. And now you want me to keep giving when all you've ever done is take. For a moment, there was silence on the other end, a rare pause in her usual tirade. Then she snapped, her tone shifting from wounded to accusatory. You ungrateful child. After everything we've done for you. That line again. As if raising me excused years of belittling and exploitation. I clenched my jaw, fighting back the storm of emotions swirling inside me. Part of me wanted to scream, to unleash every pent-up frustration I'd buried over the years. But another part, the stronger part, knew this was my moment to stand firm. If you really cared about me, Mom, you wouldn't treat me like an ATM. It's over. I hung up before she could respond, my hands trembling as I set the phone down. Calling Dad came next. Unlike Mom's emotional outbursts, his approach was colder, more calculated. You think you can survive without us, James? He sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. You'll see soon enough. Without our guidance, you're nothing. Mark offhandedly mentioned that you've been struggling lately anyway. Don't come crawling back begging for forgiveness because we won't give it easily. His words stung, not because they were true, but because they revealed his true colors, control disguised as concern. For a split second, doubt crept in. What if I couldn't make it on my own? What if they were right? But then I remembered every insult, every jab, every time they reduced my dreams to jokes. My resolve hardened. I don't need your guidance, Dad. I haven't for years. And I sure as hell don't need your guilt trips anymore. Before he could retaliate, I ended the call, my heart pounding but my mind clear. Inside, I felt torn between anger and sadness. These were the people who raised me, yet they treated me like a burden. But as I sat there in the quiet aftermath of those calls, one thing became crystal clear. I deserved better. One chose myself for the first time in my life, and it felt terrifying, liberating, and absolutely necessary. The knock on my door was so forceful it shook the entire frame. I froze for a moment, staring at the wood as if it might splinter under their aggression. My heart pounded in my chest, but I already knew who stood on the other side. They weren't here to apologize or make amends, they were here to assert control, to remind me of my place. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door, and there they were. Mom, Dad, and even Mark, standing like an intimidating tribunal. Dad's arms were crossed, his jaw clenched, exuding that toxic mix of anger and authority he always wielded so well. Mom tried to soften her expression, but her trembling hands betrayed her unease. And then there was Mark, lurking behind them, smirking faintly, ready to pounce with his usual condescension. We need to talk, Dad barked, his voice dripping with false calm, a precursor to the storm I knew would follow. I stepped aside, letting them in, though every instinct screamed at me to slam the door shut. The air grew heavier as they settled into my living room, their postures radiating entitlement. It didn't take long for the accusations to start flying. You're being selfish, Mom began, her tone saccharine but laced with venom. After everything we've done for you, how could you just cut us off? Everything you've done. I shot back, incredulous. You mean raising me while constantly belittling my choices, while mocking my career and guilting me into giving you money? Before she could respond, Dad stepped in, his voice rising. Don't twist this around, James. You're acting like you're some victim here. Maybe if you'd chosen a real job instead of playing pretend, none of this would have happened. That's when Mark chimed in, leaning forward with a smirk. Yeah, let's not forget all those times you failed, dropped projects, missed deadlines, got rejected. Face it, James, you're not exactly a success story. His words hit like a punch, but I didn't flinch. Instead, I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that silenced the room. You think those failures define me? They taught me resilience, something you wouldn't understand, Mark, because you've never had to fight for anything. Everything's been handed to you on a silver platter. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence was deafening, charged with tension so thick it felt suffocating. Then Dad broke it, his voice low and dangerous. You'll regret this, James. Cutting us off won't fix your problems, it'll create new ones. But I wasn't backing down. No, Dad. What I regret is staying silent for so long. What I regret is letting you treat me like a cash machine instead of a human being. That ends now. As the weight of my words sank in, their faces shifted from anger to disbelief. Then finally to something akin. Charged silence lingered, but I held firm. The moment the door clicked shut, I felt it, a strange mix of relief and emptiness. For the first time in years, I was free from their constant demands, criticisms, and manipulations. But freedom didn't feel as sweet as I thought it would. Instead, It came with a heavy silence that pressed against me like a shadow. I sat alone in my apartment, staring into the darkness, replaying memories I had buried deep inside. There were rare moments, birthdays, holidays, fleeting laughter that once made me believe we could be a real family. Now those fragments of warmth seemed tainted by everything else they'd done. As days passed, life began to change in ways I hadn't anticipated. Without the weight of guilt trips or financial obligations hanging over me, I found myself focusing more on my work. My business grew steadily, fueled by passion rather than obligation. For the first time, I allowed myself to celebrate my achievements without fearing someone would tear them down. Yet, despite these victories, there were nights when doubt crept in. Scrolling through social media one evening, I stumbled upon photos of my family at a barbecue. They looked happy, laughing, smiling, pretending nothing was wrong. A pang of longing hit me, followed by anger. Was I too harsh? Did I make the right choice? A week later, a distant relative messaged me, "Are you sure about this, James? Cutting off your family is no small thing." His words echoed in my mind, stirring up old insecurities. But after a long pause, I typed back simply, "Yes," because deep down, I knew staying connected meant giving them permission to keep hurting me. Every dollar I gave, every sacrifice I made, it never earned me respect. It only fed their greed. Still, letting go wasn't easy. Some mornings, I woke up feeling untethered, like I'd lost a piece of myself. But then I remembered the video, the insults, the years of being treated like an ATM. Those memories hardened my resolve. If freedom meant loneliness, so be it. At least now, I own my life completely. One night, I had a dream so vivid it felt real. I was a child again, locked in a dark room with no windows, no doors, just an endless void swallowing me whole. I called out, my voice echoing into silence, but no one came. No one even seemed to notice I was gone. When I woke up, drenched in sweat, the weight of the dream lingered. It wasn't just a random nightmare. It was a manifestation of my deepest fear, being abandoned, forgotten, erased as if I never mattered. Since cutting ties with my family, life has been quieter, freer, but not without its shadows. Scrolling through Facebook late at night, I sometimes stumble upon their photos, smiling faces, shared meals, moments frozen in time. They look happy, or at least they pretend to be. Seeing those images stirs something inside me, a mix of longing and doubt. Did I go too far? Was severing all connections truly necessary, or did I let anger cloud my judgment? But then I remember why I made the decision: the video, the insults, the years of being treated like nothing more than a source of income. Every memory reminds me that staying connected would have only prolonged the pain. Still, the question lingers. Am I wrong for choosing distance over reconciliation? For prioritizing my peace over forgiveness? The truth is, I don't know if I'll ever feel completely okay about it. Maybe part of me will always wonder what could have been different. But for now, I hold on to this. I deserve respect. I deserve to live without constantly proving my worth or enduring ridicule disguised as family banter. If that means walking away, then so be it. And yet, I can't help but ask myself and you this: was I right to cut them off entirely? Would you have done the same in my shoes? Or should I have tried harder to mend things, despite everything they put me through? I'd love to hear your thoughts, because sometimes, even after making a choice, the answers aren't clear.